Today I want to talk about Apple's peak event, which was surprising to say the least. There were so many things that were very interesting and a few things that were kind of boring for me. So the first thing I want to talk about when it comes to Apple's peak performance event is the copywriting itself. Since I am a copywriter, I thought the tagline was genius. The word peak performance. Peak here is not a typo. It actually refers to peaking. So maybe what Apple meant was you get a peek, you get a look at next level performance, maybe even furtively. That was the first thing that caught my attention. Apple kicked off its event with an announcement for Apple TV Plus. And let's just say that I'm not very interested in Apple TV Plus, especially because it's still new. Not really that new, but they don't have that much content. And they also made some announcements about baseball. Sorry, not for me. The next thing that Apple announced was two new green colors for iPhone 13. So if you love green, this is for you. And the next thing they talked about was the much awaited iPhone SE. Now in typical Apple fashion, iPhone SE is supposed to be the cheapest iPhone, the most affordable for people that don't want to spend a lot of money, even though it has the A15 processor, which is incredibly powerful, still the most powerful chip on a smartphone. And even though the camera has been slightly improved, the main problem with this phone, in my opinion, is the design. This overused, ugly design since the iPhone 8 days. I mean, come on, this just gotta go. Unless you are somebody who likes classic designs, by all means, maybe this phone's good for you. But for anyone that wants to have a good-looking phone, the iPhone SE is not. In my opinion, it's just an ugly phone. However, the specs are so good for this phone. Apple has been doing this for a while now. It's one of the most affordable Apple products that you can get your hands on. If you remove the Touch ID, you can take advantage of all of that screen real estate at the bottom. So the size of the phone, the overall size would not change, but the screen will be bigger. And that is supposed to be the case, but it's not. So, all right, next Apple announced the iPad Air. The new iPad Air has the M1 chip, and that is a big game changer because the iPad Air is cheaper than the iPad Pro. This is expensive. Yes, it's got the M1 chip and it's got like lots of other Pro features, but I think this is a great move that Apple did by putting the M1 chip in the iPad Air. Same form factor, same everything except for the new chip. And they also introduced a new color. Now let's talk about the most exciting part of this presentation, which is the announcement of a brand new chip. And I know what you're thinking. M2? No, that's not what Apple called it. Everybody thought it was going to be called the M2 chip, but instead Apple surprised everybody with the name M1 Ultra. Now to understand what this chip is all about, picture two M1 Max chips fused together, jammed, fused, connected, whatever you want to call it, together at the bottom here. So you get a powerful chip unlike anything else we've ever seen. Now, I might be a little bit skeptical about that, but knowing Apple delivers on its promises, I don't think there should be a problem. We're going to be seeing benchmarks pretty soon. Because remember NVIDIA's SLI days? I had an NVIDIA SLI graphics chip years ago, and unlike what most people thought, you don't get double the performance. But in this case, Apple claims that the M1 Ultra chip will behave as a single chip. And I don't think that should be a problem because the chips are connected at the bottom. The entire length of the chip is connected together. This is my theory. And you get 2.5 terabytes per second, and that's the interprocessor bandwidth. I think the chips will deliver. The M1 Ultra comes with a 20-core CPU with 16 high-performance cores and 4 high-efficiency cores. And you also have the option for a 64 GPU core. That is amazing. I can't say we didn't expect that. I mean, coming from 32 GPU for the incredibly awesome M1 Max, now you have 64 core. And I think this was much needed because with the introduction of Intel's new 12th gen processors, and also you have NVIDIA's 3090. So when it comes to performance, they did outperform the M1 Max, but now that we have the M1 Ultra, Apple is making insane claims. In typical Apple fashion, they like to compare their products to other devices out there in the market. And they did, and they compared the M1 Max chip to a 10-core PC desktop And that is a Core i5 12600K, which is, I mean, come on, that's a Core i5. But to be fair, yeah, i5 with the M1 Max, because now they have the M1 Ultra. They compared the M1 Ultra to a 16-core PC desktop, and that is top of the line, the Core i9 12900K and DDR5 memory. And if you look at this graph, it's just insane. You're getting the same amount of performance with much less power consumption, if actually not more. You're actually getting slightly more. If you look at the graph, you are getting the same amount of performance at 100 watts less power. So this is the crazy part, the GPU, and that just blew my mind. Apple compared the M1 Max chip to the RTX 3060 Ti. Okay, fair enough. You get the same amount of performance, okay, with much less power, actually a third. But that's not the real shocker for me. The M1 Ultra, when they compared it to the NVIDIA 3090, we're talking about an NVIDIA 3090 with an Intel Core i9 processor, 12900K, you're getting the same performance with 200 watts less power. Let that sink in a little bit. 200 watts less power. Okay, to be fair, I don't think this is gonna make much of a difference if you are using a desktop device, but it's gonna make a huge difference if you are using a laptop, because laptops have a big problem. If you haven't watched my razor blade video, go ahead and watch it. I made a video just for that, how to deal with thermal problems with your gaming laptop. Laptops become running ovens. They will cook they can even burn your hands or your lap. That is the problem with laptops. And when you have a GPU that is this efficient, 200 watts less power than a 3090 with the same performance, that is crazy. This is amazing. This is the holy grail of laptop graphics performance. But if you put that in a desktop, honestly, to be fair, it's not much of a big deal, because on a desktop, usually thermals are better. So even if you have a Windows machine with a 3090 and a 12th gen Intel processor, that shouldn't be a problem, because desktops have better cooling systems, better thermals. However, there is another disadvantage, but it may not be a big deal for some people, and that is electricity consumption. So this thing is going to consume less electricity. But I still didn't even talk about the new product that they announced. They announced something called the Mac Studio, which is basically a Mac Mini that, how do I put this? Just picture a Mac Mini that is so obese, it forgot to exercise and it led a sedentary lifestyle. Like, just imagine if you're a person, let's just say if you're 200 pounds and now you are 400 pounds. That's exactly what a Mac Mini looks like. It's very thick, got the same footprint at 7.7 inches, but now it's way thicker at 3.7 inches. I mean, it may still fit under your monitor if your monitor is tall enough, but I think it's okay. You know, not everything fat or thick in the world of electronics and tech is bad. As a matter of fact, the thicker, the better. Of course, up until a certain point, I agree. I mean, think of gaming laptops that look horrible. The very thick gaming laptops that nobody cares about anymore. So thicker is actually better for thermals. And in this case, in the Mac Mini Studio's case, they did that so they can put better thermals. Like half of it is actually for thermals. Like half of it is actually for thermals to suck out all that heat. And finally, they announced a new display, which is impressive. So the new screen comes with certain Apple features that I love. It comes with Center Stage that was introduced first on the iPad Pro. I love this feature. So now you have that. The current Apple XDR screens don't have a camera, and that is very, very useful for people who want to have conferencing. Some people are still doing that with distance learning and remote work. So that is very useful. And also, they added the powerful speakers that everybody loves, that Apple makes, the best speakers in devices like laptops and whatever. They added those speakers in that monitor. And that's about it, guys. If you like this video, give it a like. And if you really like this video, subscribe to this channel. And have a great day.